Right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Let's get started on the compilation of hadiths from Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, known as al-Lu'Lu wal-Marjan فيما اتفق عليه الشيخان. تفضل عبد الرقيب بارك الله فيك. السلام ورحمة الله.
باب تقليد الهدي وإشعاره عن الإحرام. عن ابن عباس إذا طاف بالبيت فقد حل. من أين قال هذا ابن عباس؟ قال من قول الله تعالى ثم نحلها إلى البيت الأتيك. ومن أمرنا ثم نحلها إلى البيت الأتيك. ومن أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أصحابه أن يحلوا في حدود الوداع. قلت إنما كان ذلك بعد المعرة. قال كان ابن عباس يراه قبل وبعد.
أعد الحديث.
حديث بن عباس عن ابن جريج قال حدثني عطاء عن ابن عباس إذا طاف بالبيت فقد حل. قلت من أين قال هذا ابن عباس؟ قال من قول الله تعالى ثم محلها إلى البيت العتيق. ومن أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أصحابه أن يحلوا في حجة الوداع. قلت إنما كان ذلك بعد المعرة. قال كان ابن عباس يراه قبل وبعد.
طيب جزاك الله خيرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله صلى الله وسلم وبارك على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So the chapter, we're on chapter number 32, page 399, and the tail end of volume 1. Chapter number 32 in the book of Hajj says, Babu taqlid al-hadi wa ish'arihi عند الإحرام. Garlanding and marking the hadi animals while assuming ihram. A hawker, huh? Garlanding, taqlid al-hadi, yani, is to place something around the animal's neck. When you make Hajj, certain types of Hajj, there is an obligatory or optional sacrificial animal. A cow, a camel, a goat, a sheep, a bull, a bison, a water buffalo, etc. Bahimatul an'am, the cattle. So therefore, it's recommended to do certain things with this animal. The animal should be taken with you on your way to Hajj. And the animal should be marked. And it should be shown that this is a sacrificial animal. It is not to be violated or molested. It is not to be taken. It is not to be used for food. It is not to be hunted. It is not to be desecrated or disrespected. It's a sacred sacrificial animal for Hajj, and known as hadi, al-hadi. So, from the ways of marking this animal and showing the people that it is for the rites and rituals of Hajj is that which is called a taqlid wal-ishaar. And the taqlid means to wrap something around its neck, to put something around its neck. And this is when it comes to a fa'idah pertaining to the lugha, the language, and da'wah and fiqh. This is the meaning of taqlid. Is ja'alul qilada fi unuq al-bahima. It's to place a rope or a necklace or a chain around an animal's neck. In other words, for you to pull the animal, steer the animal, etc. So that is the similitude, that's the symbolicism of blindly following someone in Islam. They say right, you go right. They pull you to the left, you go to the left. They say stop, you stop. They say run, jump, you run, you jump. That's taqlid. And linguistically, this is to show us the ugly nature of taqlid. Is that it isn't something which is praiseworthy. Is it permissible to blindly follow someone in Islam, a scholar, someone that you learn, that's learned, someone that you trust? Is it okay sometimes? Is it a necessity sometimes? Someone who doesn't have the necessary knowledge, someone who doesn't have the necessary training, someone who works 2 or 3 jobs. I work 18 hours a day, 15 hours a day. I work 7 days a week. I don't have the time to sit down and read the books like the Imam does. I don't have the understanding, the know-how to, is it permissible for me to eat this chicken? Yes or no, Sheikh? That's it. Is it permissible for me to buy a house like this? Is it permissible for me to lease a car? Is it permissible for me to do this? Is it permissible for me to speak at my grandmother's funeral, etc., etc.? You ask the Imam that you trust, that you respect. He says yes, he says no. You can't buy the car like that, but lease it like that. You can't sell the house like that, but rent it like that. You can't eat this type of chicken, but you can eat that type of chicken. You can't do this type of speech at your grandmother's funeral, but you can remind the people, etc. Right? So taqlid being necessary or mandatory sometimes, or even praiseworthy at sometimes, that's not the initial argument. But the initial argument is that taqlid by nature and as a default is a thing which is pretty or ugly. Ugly. And these people who have disrespected the Salaf Salih, tarnished the name of the Salaf Salih, hijacked and monopolized the name of the Salaf Salih in their way, that is exactly what they do. They make taqlid something which is ugly and condemned and looked down upon. They make it as an asl hasan. Fadlan an al-wujub. Let alone it being mandatory, you have to make taqlid of this scholar, of these brothers, of this masjid. You have to listen to us. You have to khabar thiqa, blah, 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 blah. But they do not, hum la yastaqbihuna taqlid aslan. They do not uglify, they do not look down upon taqlid as being a bad thing as a starting point. Rather, they look at it as a mandatory thing as a starting point. And the only time they'll talk about the dispraise of taqlid, the evil of blind following, how it's not from the Salaf's way, is when it's against an opponent. When someone else is following another scholar and not following Sheikh Fulan, then they'll say, you can't make taqlid of Sheikh Fulan. Sheikh Fulan said that he's not an innovator. You're just sticking to him just because he's Sheikh Fulan. That's the only time you'll hear them talk about the dispraised nature of taqlid. Or if they're beating up some Hanafis or Jamaat al-Tabligh or somebody else that just picking on in the corner, they'll bash them. Don't blindly follow Abu Hanifa. Don't do this, don't stick to that. Inna wajadna, inna sami'na. It's the only time. When it comes to their scholars, their da'is, when it comes to being fanatical for them, blindly following them, disregarding common sense, clear reports that what Sheikh Fulan said is inaccurate. That's not true. Sheikh Fulan, brother Fulan doesn't even know him. What do you mean he's with him, he defends him? He doesn't even know the man. He never met the man. What do you mean? He's with him. Kayf ya Sheikh. They say you have to what? You have to follow the ulama. You have to listen to the scholars. You have to obey the scholars. And Allah ya'murukum wa ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri min. They say that. Taqlid. They push taqlid. They value it. They throw it down at people's throats. And is taqlid okay at times? Is it mandatory at times? It's not the discussion. But the thing, fil asl, shay hasan wala shay qabih. For him to farq, understand the difference? And something being a thing from a starting point, it sets the tone of how you proceed afterwards. Khamar, permissible to drink if you're starving. Flesh of swine, permissible to eat if you're starving, or not permissible? It's permissible for sure. You stay alive, you preserve your life. You eat that swine if that's the only thing that you have to eat. Okay? But does that mean that we start off saying that swine is okay, it's all right, it's not that bad, you know? No. We only eat the swine and drink the khamr and the what? هذا هو. And there's a huge difference between هذا وذاك. عرفت? So taqlid linguistically means to place a string or rope around an animal's neck and to lead the animal around. And that is what you do when you allow a scholar to tell you lawful, unlawful, bid'ah, sunnah, sunni, mubtadi', salafi, take from him, don't take from him. Yesterday you took from him, tomorrow don't take from him. Back and forth like a ping pong ball. They just control you. And if you look over the years, they switch their narratives what? Like that, without no explanation. Years ago, no scholars in the West. There will never be no scholars in the West. You can't say there's a scholar in the West. You can't call that brother Sheikh. But Sheikh Fulan called him Sheikh. He just called him Sheikh out of respect. Well, why can't we call him Sheikh out of respect? If there's a scholar in Medina who calls this student of knowledge Sheikh Kether out of respect, then what? Why can't we? And they say, no, he's not a Sheikh. He's a da'i. Nowadays, in their flyers and their events, what do they say? Sheikh Fulan. Sheikh Fulan. Sheikh Fulan. Did they explain? Let's say they changed their opinion. It's okay. They have a different view. No problem. That's fine. You can change your opinion. How many opinions I've what? Changed. I was just in Minnesota. The brother saw the watch on my wrist. He said, Mufti, we said, what happened to the pocket watch? Didn't you say you would never wear a wristwatch, pocket watch? You would always get, people would change. That's fine. But they did what? No explanation. And the thing that was so ugly, so evil, so haram is now so normal. And there are 50 other examples of this. Why is that? Because they are a people of what? Taqlid. From the higher chain, what? On down. Kidha. They're people of taqlid. And they don't look at taqlid as being a bad thing fil asl, originally. So taqlid is not a good thing in Islam. It is not a praiseworthy thing by default. In certain circumstances, when you have to blindly follow, it's okay to blindly follow. And there are levels of blindly following. That's a different discussion. But how a thing is from the get-go is going to determine how you deal with it, what? In the future. Everyone understand the difference? So that's what's meant by taqlidul hadi. It then says, wa ish'arihi, and then making the ishaar. What is meant by the ishaar? Al-ishaar, some of you guys may not understand this or look at this as being something which is cruel or brutal or gross. It is to make a small incision on the back of the animal and allow the blood to pour down from the sides of the animal's back onto its flanks, especially a camel. And that is what's meant by al-ish'ar. Does that hurt the animal? Is that painful to the animal? Is that animal brutality? Is that gruesome? Is that gory in al-Islam, etc., etc.? We know that Islam, no doubt, is a religion of mercy. That's a fact. It's a religion of peace. That is a fact as well. But it doesn't mean that every single thing and every detail is going to be pretty and merciful and peaceful, right? You went to the United States. You visited the United States. Someone, he traveled from Singapore. So how was it? So it was very peaceful. I walked down the street at night. No one bothered me. I went to the mall. I ate. I did this. I did that. People spoke to me. They helped me out. My English wasn't that good. It was very peaceful. No problem. So he had a peaceful experience in America. We say in general, the safety of America. There are bad parts. There are rough parts. There are tough parts. But in general, it's pretty, it's not like some countries which just people just on the side of the road with huge machine guns, hijacking people, robbing people, raping people, bandits running around rampant throughout the country. You find people with guns, you find violence, you find drugs. No doubt, it's rough parts, rough areas. But it's not just what? A country of what? Chaos. Chaos all over the place. Especially certain cities, certain parts and sections of cities. It's generally what? Safe. So you drop your wallet, somebody give you your wallet back. You'll be shocked in the airport, in general. But that doesn't mean that there's no what? That doesn't mean the cops don't have guns. That don't mean the cops don't shoot people. It doesn't mean people don't get beat up. It doesn't mean violence and bad things don't what? Happen. But the general, overwhelming atmosphere of this town or this city is, what can that? Everyone understand this? Your father, you say my father was a loving man. He was a merciful man. He was so soft and sweet. He never got angry at you. You never got in trouble. You never got grounded. Or some people beaten with a stick or a belt or whatever the case may be. You get the point I'm trying to make. All right? It doesn't mean, just because I'm peaceful doesn't mean you can what? There are no rules, right? So that's what's meant by al-ish'ar. Nawawi, and obviously that's very important with regards to anything in Islam, jihad, beating women, disciplining your child, etc., etc. It's how this is harsh. This is violent. This is so on and so forth, right? Allah musta'an. So, no, he says here, فأشعرها في صفحة سنامها الأيمن وسرت الدم وقلدها نعلين ثم ركب راحلته فلما استوت به على البيداء أهل بالحج. أما الإشعار فهو أن يجرحها في صفحة سنامها اليمنى بهربة أو سكين أو حديدة أو نحوها ثم يسلب الدم عنها. وأصل الإشعار والشعور الإعلام والعلامة، وإشعار الهدي لكونه علامة لا، ومستحب ليعلم أنه هدي، فإن ضل رده واجده، وإن اختلط بغيره تميز، ولأن فيه إشعار شعار وفيه تنبيه غير صاحبه على فعل مثل فعله. وأما صفحة السنام فهي جانبه، والصفحة مؤنثة، فقوله الأيمن بلفظ التذكير يتأول على أنه وصف لمعنى الصفحة لا أو للصحفة كذا هكذا صحفة لا للفظها، ويكون المراد بالصفحة كذا الصواب الجانب، فكأنه قال جانب سنامها الأيمن. طيب, he says that the Prophet ﷺ made ish'ar, more specifically to camels, the hump of the camel. A small slight incision is made on the right side and the blood what? Trickles down. Does the camel feel this? Does the camel experience pain through this? That's a good question. Does the camel even feel pain through this? The nature of the hump, right? How the incision and how the cut is what? Made, etc., etc. And of course, there's a very long discussion with regards to animal rights, PETA, right? Plant-based, right? Everything, everywhere you go, plant-based, right? Plant-based is more healthier. They had this big, gigantic sign in New York, what? Leather is somebody's skin, right? The guy screaming, right? We're vegan, it said, right? And that don't make any sense. That's so stupid because, like, yo, if the cow is dead and the leather is pulled off, does the cow feel the pain? For argument's sake, okay? As far as other furs, that's a different story. Them pulling the fur off of the chinchilla, right? Or the whatever the case, that's what? That's a different story. Okay, but we're talking about leather taken off of a cow after the cow's been what? It's dead. It's not feeling anything. The point is that it's a long discussion across animal rights. Can a person brand an animal? Is that lawful to brand an animal? To put a number or an initial on an animal so the animal isn't stolen or mixed up? Is it lawful to slaughter an animal? Is that brutality to kill an animal to eat it? Right? So many people that get caught up with regards to these things, Islam does support animal rights in what? In general. But that doesn't mean that everything that they say and do and want is in accordance with Islam. And from that is al-ish'ar. All right. طيب, he says here, so the right side of the camel's hump and the blood flows down. Al-ish'ar and shu'ur al-i'lam wal-alama. It's to show, it's to point. And the purpose of this, and obviously this is recommended, know what he says, is if the animal becomes lost, they'll know that it is a Hajj animal. It's not just a lost animal. If the animal becomes mixed with other animals, they know that it is a Hajj animal, a hadi, and is not to be violated, stolen, taken, etc., etc. Even if someone's stealing animals, they may see the hadi animal and say, whoa, what? Hey, leave that one alone. I don't need that sin. We'll steal the other normal stuff. Nah? But I don't want the what? And that's better, no doubt. That's yani fiqh al-ma'siyah, yani. From the understanding of sins, unfortunately. And sometimes you what? You have to have that fiqh. And that shows that you still have some type of what? No doubt. And which you don't have, a person has no control whatsoever. It's a reality. Nah? And there are many examples of this in our culture. All right? Someone who kills people says, not that one. Leave them alone. Leave those, blah. Even though he's a killer. But he has some type of shame and says, something left, right? طيب. So that's the sunnah of ish'ar, and that's the purpose of al-ish'ar. And the taqlid, it's mentioned here, is that the Prophet ﷺ, it says here, is that he put 2 sandals around the camel's neck. He tied 2 sandals around the camel's neck to let the people know is that it was a sacrificial animal for Hajj. He says, ففي هذا الحديث استحباب الإشعار والتقليد في الهدايا من الإبل وبهذا قال جماهير العلماء من السلف والخلف وقال أبو حنيفة الإشعار بدعة لأنه مثلى وهذا يخالف الأحاديث الصحيحة المشهورة في الإشعار. He says this hadith proves is that ish'ar is sunnah. It's recommended to do. And that's the view and the opinion of the overwhelming majority of the people of knowledge. And no, he says that Abu Hanifa rahimahullah had an opposing view, is that the ish'ar, not only is it haram, or not only is it not recommended, but he says, Allahu alam, that's what? Bid'ah. And the reason why it's bid'ah is because ish'ar is mutilating the animal. Like we said, animal rights. Cutting the animal, the blood is pouring from the animal, etc. And obviously this opinion of Abu Hanifa sounds good, looks good, seems good, lawla, but it clearly goes against the well-known authentic hadiths that are well-known. And that's a very long discussion with regards to why an imam took an opinion that went against the sunnah. Why an imam holds a view, why is a madhab in clear opposition to hadiths. All right, there are different reasons, right? And from those reasons is that the imam didn't hear about the hadith or didn't reach him. And that also in theory sounds what? Sounds good. But there are many times in which the hadiths are so famous and well known. The students of the imam did what? They knew about the hadith. It was known in Iraq. It was known in Kufa. It was known in Basra. It was in widespread circulation. And he went for another reason. Obviously, there are different reasons, but that first reason isn't always what? Nah. Sometimes that's a little pity pat too much. He didn't hear la'lahu ma balagha la. You can't say that every time. You can't say that every time that he never heard about the hadith. And then the opposite view that he takes is some weird mursal, shadh, munkar riwayah, mawdu'. So people, they say, well, the imam, he didn't take the hadith because he didn't trust the narrators. He didn't think that the narrators were sound or strong, and he had a very strong condition of qabul. Okay, so these are hadith, Malik took, Fulan took, Sufyan al-Thawri, Sufyan ibn is well known. But the hadith that he took, he based his view off his what? Batil mawdu'. So that's another proof that those theoretical reasons why the imams differed and took different views against the sunnah, they don't always what? They're not always valid. Huh? Khair inshallah. So that's a fa'idah. Be mindful of that, right? Wallahu alam. He then says, وأما محل الإشعار فمذهبنا ومذهب جماهير العلماء من السلف والخلف أنه يستحب الإشعار في صفحة السنام اليمنى وقال مالك في اليسرى وهذا الحديث يرد عليه وأما تقليد الغنم فهو مذهبنا ومذهب العلماء كافة من السلف والخلف إلا مالكا فإنه لا يقول بتقليدها قال القاضي عياض ولعله لم يبلغه كما قلت نعم ولعله لم يبلغه الحديث الثابت في ذلك قلت يعني النووي قد جاءت أحاديث كثيرة صحيحة بالتقليد فهي حجة صريحة في الرد على من خالفها واتفقوا على أن الغنم لا تشعر لضعفها عن الجرح ولأنه يستتر بالسوف وأما البقرة فيستحب عند الشافعي وموافقيه الجمع فيها بين الإشعار والتقليد كالإبل. Listen carefully. Listen very carefully. Nawawi then says, as far as where the ish'ar is to be made on the animal, then the overwhelming majority of the scholars from the Salaf and the Khalaf, they hold the view is that the ish'ar, the incision, should be made on the right hump of the animal, or the right side of the camel's hump. The right side, on the right side. All right? And this fa'idah also goes to show us is that the word salaf, the pious predecessors, the early ulama, the pure generations of the Muslims is not an invention of Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab or Ibn Taymiyyah or Uthaymeen or Bin Baz or Fulan or Albani or Fulan. This is Nawawi using the word, saying the word. Understand? طيب. Nawawi says the majority of the Salaf and the Khalaf, they held the view is that it should be on the right side of the camel's hump. And Imam Malik held the view that it should be on the what? The left side and not the right side. Nawawi says this hadith does what? La. All respect to Malik, you can't take that view and that opinion, which is in clear opposition to the text. Then he speaks on making taqlid of camels, or excuse me, of goat and sheep. He says, once again, most of the ulama, overwhelming majority, they hold the view is that camel or goat and sheep, taqlid should be made just like camels. A string should be placed around their neck. Then he says here, except for Imam Malik. Once again, Malik said those what? They shouldn't be. Qadi Iyal says, maybe Malik didn't hear about the hadith. Maybe it didn't reach Imam Malik. No, he states there are so many authentic hadiths, which are hujjatun sarihah, a clear proof against Imam Malik and anyone else who holds the view of Imam Malik. Then he says, وَاتَّفَقُوا, and the scholars agree is that ishaar is only for camels. It is not to be done for the sheep and the goat. All right, it's for camels and other larger animals, right? And obviously the sheep has fleece or wool. It's not going to be seen, it's not going to be visible. And the goat are going to have hair. All right, as far as a cow or bull, a heifer or bull, then Shafi and others, they say, is that it is to be treated just like a camel. There's taqlid done and إشعار done. طيب. وفي هذا الحديث استحباب تقليد الإبل بنعلين وهو مذهبنا ومذهب العلماء كافة فانقلدها بغير ذلك من جلود أو خيوط مفتولة ونحوها فلا بأس. And this hadith also shows the recommendation of making the taqlid of the animals with two sandals. If a person uses string or rope or collar or anything else, that's fine as well. Now, very interesting issue, and that is, can this sunnah even be implemented in 2021? Do you have the ability to walk with your sacrificial animal from Mecca or Medina or wherever? And this is an example of how, with so many people, so many things have changed out of necessity. Oftentimes, many sunnah acts can't even be practiced. There's just too many people, right? Khair, inshallah. All right, we'll stop here tonight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Jazakumullah khairan. Don't forget to sign up for the Jinn Possession lecture, part 2. Inshallah ta'ala, which will be tomorrow night at 9:30 p.m. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Wa iyyakum.